Good afternoon. My name is Phillips, and I'm the Associate Dean of the University Honors College. I'm pleased to welcome everyone to our Fall 2015 Honors Lecture Series. Today we have student presentations. Every semester, the Dean and I will choose from among the very best of the theses that have been defended in the University Honors College, and we try to choose theses from a variety of disciplines using different methodologies with different themes and such to show the range of the work that our students produce here at MTSU, and also to give our students, those of you in the audience, an opportunity to learn from your peers and to be able to ask questions not only about the research or performances, but also about the process itself, from the proposal through the finished product. Today I'm pleased to welcome our speaker, Zachary Dresch. Zachary is from Southwest Virginia and graduated high school in 2011 as valedictorian at Powell Valley High. He attended MTSU from 2011 to 2013 before enlisting in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. Zachary resumed school at MTSU in fall 2014 and is scheduled to graduate with a bachelor's in recording industry with a concentration in audio production and a biology minor. His primary interests include live sound and sports science. His project advisor was John Merchant, and the title of his thesis was Comparisons Between Select Studio Microphone Techniques in Middle Tennessee State University's Studio A. Please join me in welcoming Zachary.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips, and thank you everyone for hearing me out today. So I'm in the recording industry program over at the College of Media and Entertainment, and my primary background is live sound. So I've been working with production services on campus since I was a freshman. We do things like football games, basketball games, lecture halls, concerts. We did Icona Pop this semester, if any of you were there. That was a pretty big show for us. So what I'm used to doing is serving as sort of like an interpreter between the musician and the audience. So the musician can play their heart out and do a great job of it, but without the mix engineer in between the musician and the audience, that's just lost in acoustic space after a few feet. So what my job has primarily been is to translate that through, public address systems, loudspeakers, and the like, so that the audience hears what the artist wants them to hear. So with this project, I kind of transitioned from live sound to studio sound. And it's a very different environment, and there were definitely unique challenges associated with that. What the primary goal of this work was to compare microphone techniques in terms of placement. So if someone, a musician on stage or in the studio, plays an acoustic guitar, then to my ears, I can walk around it, full circle, back and forth across the room, and it's going to sound like an acoustic guitar. And it's going to sound about the same. But to a microphone, where you place the microphone relative to the instrument is going to make a world of difference in terms of just a few inches. So what I wanted to do is sort of quantify that in a way that was useful to engineers like myself and anyone really who deals with microphones. Now, over at the College of Media and Entertainment, there's kind of two approaches to quantifying things. You can use a very scientific approach, which involves measurements, measurement microphones, analytical data, frequency response charts, and stuff like that. Or you can take a qualitative approach and try to describe it in words. So trying to describe a sound in words is a pretty hard thing to do. If you think about, whatever your favorite song might be, and how would you describe those instruments and those vocals? We might describe them musically in terms of notes and keys. We might decide they sound bright or dark, or they make us feel happy or sad. But to really get across the idea of a sound, you kind of have to use sound. And so that's what I wanted to do. And so my project culminated with me making a video that compared microphone placement techniques and gave you clear sounds so that you could listen to what was actually happening. And then in the paper, I went on to describe them in sort of a flawed qualitative way, because if we don't attempt that, then we lose all that information defunctly. So the way this worked was I went in the studio and I would play music and record myself doing it, and I would record multiple microphones simultaneously for the same performance. And then I would take those and put them in Pro Tools and edit them together so that it became clear what the differences were. So we're going to watch that video, and then I'll talk to you a little more about it.
Hey everyone, I'm Zachary Dresch, and this video is designed to demonstrate how microphone placement can affect studio recordings. Microphone placement is very important because even small changes can affect the tonal quality of recorded sounds. To demonstrate this, we're going to look at a few specific examples recorded right here at Middle Tennessee State University's Studio A. Here's the acoustic guitar in 4 different microphone positions: neck, neck joint, sound hole, and bridge. What we just heard demonstrates both tonal and level differences of the same recorded performance. For a better comparison of tonal difference, we will now listen to the same recordings with individual microphones adjusted to a more even listening level. The next sound source we will be exploring is the electric guitar cabinet. Keep in mind that regardless of whether the instrument being amplified is a guitar, bass, keyboard, or other musical device, similar tonal qualities are expected from these microphone positions on any sort of speaker in a box. Position 1. On axis with the cabinet, centered on the speaker cone, 2 inches from the grill cover. Position 2. On axis with the cabinet, off-center from the speaker cone towards the outside edge of the speaker, 2 inches away from the grill cover. Position 3. 45 degrees off-axis with the cabinet, over the outside edge of the speaker, angled towards the center of the speaker cone, 2 inches away from the grill cover. Position 4. On-axis with the cabinet, centered on the speaker cone, 3 feet away from the grill cover. Our last sound source is a kick or bass drum. This is an important instrument to be knowledgeable of due to its use in popular music as the foundation of the beat. Position 1. On axis with interior head directly over beater strike area. Position 2. On axis with interior head towards the outside edge of the drum head. Position 3. On axis with the interior head positioned slightly inside the sound port. To conclude our study, it is clear that microphone placement dramatically affects not only the level of the recorded sound, but the tonality of it as well. With the acoustic guitar, we found that microphone positions closer to the neck produce a brighter, quieter sound, whereas miking closer to the bridge results in a deeper, louder sound. This is especially true with the microphone positioned directly over the sound hole, where the instrument may become quite boomy. With regard to the electric guitar cabinet, sound becomes less bright and more quiet the further we move away from the center cone, both towards the outside edge of the speaker and away from the cabinet. And finally, we observed that with a kick drum, the closer the placement is to the spot where the beater contacts the interior drum head, the more the beater is emphasized, as opposed to the resonance of the drum itself.
All right, so there you have it. Now, the first thing that I would wonder if I watched this is, why on earth don't those instruments sound right? Especially the kick drum. It sounds like a piece of plastic. So the reason for this is that these are designed to compare microphone placement techniques. They are not designed to sound good. This is the microphone on the kick drum was a Shure SM57. It's a very common microphone. It's capable of handling very high sound pressure levels, and it's also a slim profile, so it was easier for me to get it to fit. In addition, I needed to have 3, or in the case of the guitars, 4 of the same microphone in order to make a meaningful comparison. And so the most readily available microphones in Studio A are small dynamic type microphones such as SM57s, and the other one which was a Sennheiser MD421. So it's kind of a stark contrast how different some of those sound. The kick drum a little less so. I mean, I spent hours listening to those same 3 beater strikes over and over, you know, different loudnesses, and, you know, trying to figure out, well, what was different. And so it's a little easier for me in hindsight to say, wow, those had some, you know, very dissimilar things. But something that's easy to see, I hope, was the acoustic guitar. Just going 2 to 3 inches from left to right made a huge difference on how it picked up the sound. And this is due to a couple of things. So first we have to talk about phase. So phase is a time arrival difference between 2 related signals. And what happens when you're getting multiple reflections, like you do off any real instrument and like you do in a physical room, then these reflections aren't going to line up perfectly with the direct sound. So when I have a microphone positioned over the body of a guitar, it's getting the sound from the guitar off the floor, the sound from the guitar off the ceiling, the sound from the guitar off anything else in the room, and the sound from the guitar off anything else in the room back off the body of the guitar. So there's a lot going on. And so no matter where I physically place this microphone, with real instruments and a real room environment, there are always going to be phase cancellations and phase summations, where certain frequencies will be cut and certain frequencies will be reinforced. Now, a lot of placement has to do with physically where is the sound coming out of the guitar. So when it's on the neck position, there's not a lot of resonance there. When it's more towards the body, that's where the resonant cavity is. So you would expect it to be louder, you would expect it to be deeper, and those are kind of what we saw. So from those 4 microphones, especially once they've been brought to the same level, you can make a generalization about how microphone position behaves on certain axes. So we were moving specifically from the neck to the bridge, And with each successive jump, it got darker. The resonance frequency of the guitar was enhanced as you came closer to that resonant cavity. And I don't know if you would really call any of those positions good, but what was important is what they sounded compared to each other. So the primary goal of knowing why a microphone sounds different in one position or the other is so, as an engineer, when you hear a microphone in any given placement, you can adjust to what you want. So everyone's got a sound ideal. Everyone has an idea of what they think a certain instrument should sound like. I think guitars should sound like this, and I think drums should sound like this. And when they don't sound like that, I try to make them sound like that. And so that's why this is useful. Because if I know that which direction to go to achieve certain sounds, then I can apply that as I try to move from instrument to instrument and from song to song. Now, the reason I chose an acoustic guitar, an electric guitar, and a kick drum was because those instruments are representative of a lot of other instruments. So with the acoustic guitar, there were no amps involved, no electronics. It was strings and wood. And that's applicable to any other set of strings and wood. So whether we're talking orchestral instruments, violin, cello, bass, or any other shape or size of acoustic guitar. For the electric guitar cabinet, that one is perhaps the most versatile because literally any speaker will behave like that. When you have an enclosure and a speaker inside this enclosure, you project sound omnidirectionally because you can still hear it behind it, but primarily in one direction. And where you place the microphone, whether it's directly in front or slightly off to the side or slightly at an angle, it all kind of behaves the same way. So that was a very important one to be broadly aware of. Now the kick drum, you can't not include a kick drum. That's kind of everything. Whether you're doing EDM or rock or pop, the kick drum is the foundation. And so while it might not be applicable to anything other than kick drums or big drums, it was very important. So what I found when doing this thesis is that editing video is a lot harder than it looks. There were a lot. It was relatively easy for me to get the pieces, to get all the recordings, to get, each time I got up and spoke, to do the voiceover dubs. Like, getting the pieces was pretty easy. Putting them together in a way that made sense was a lot harder. And it was definitely a learning experience. And I won't say I enjoyed being outside of my comfort zone, but it's important to grow. Specifically with regard to the thesis process, you definitely have to stay in touch with your advisor. Your advisor will not go out and do stuff for you. It's your job to follow your timeline and deliver when you need to deliver. And there was one point where I sent an email where I was like, hey, I'm running a little behind. I'm thinking of scrapping this part of the project. And the email I got back said, hey, pressure creates diamonds. And sometimes you just got to buckle down. And that was one of the most intense academic weeks of my life. But I was pleased that he motivated me to stick with the project. Are there any questions?
As the different examples you had, where did you think it sounded the best? Like on the guitar, on the kick drum, on the speaker?
With the acoustic guitar, I think directly over the neck joint position is kind of a balance, because if you think that towards the neck is bright and towards the sound hole and bridge is boomy, then your happy medium is somewhere in between. Yes, it would be position 2. I would not use a Sennheiser MD421 for it. I would use one of the nice $10,000 condenser microphones, but that's just what we had to use for the project. With the electric guitar cabinet, that one's a little trickier to answer because it depends on what you're trying to create in a mix. By itself, the center cone sounds pretty good. It's bright, it's full, it's in your face, but is that necessarily what you want when you listen to an electric guitar in a mix? sometimes you need a little background, and sometimes it's designed to mostly fill out the space around the vocal. So it being prominent isn't necessarily the best thing. The kick drum, I would definitely use a different mic. You need a large diaphragm dynamic mic so it can pick up and accent all that bass frequency. I think that inside the sound hole, if you angle slightly towards the beater head with a different mic, is probably the best bet to achieve that sound.
So what difference does it make on something like an acoustic guitar if you're playing through a pickup stuck into the bottom of the guitar? I'm not a music guy, so a little rough here, but what difference does that make if you're transferring the sound through that down a cable as opposed to from a microphone placed at any one of your 4 positions?
Okay, so with acoustic guitars that have pickups in them, usually what that is it's a microphone stuck inside the guitar that's hardwired and stays there all the time. It's a microphone position. So usually that microphone position is either directly under the strings on like a gooseneck piece or something like that, or is attached directly to the wall of the guitar to pick up the vibrations through the guitar panels. And that will vary, like the sound of that will vary depending on where it's placed inside the guitar. It can be a very consistent sound because it's always in the same position, but in a studio environment, you probably wouldn't use a pickup inside of a guitar when you had multiple $10,000 condensers lying around.
I finally know how pickup works.
Other questions? Thank you.